I am 89 years old, and for 15 minutes my heart stopped completely. Not labored, not strained, stopped, flat on the monitor, silent in my chest, inside a room on the 6th floor of the University of Tennessee Medical Center, while November rain tapped against the window, and the Smoky Mountains stood gray and still in the distance. 15 minutes. The doctors will tell you the same. For 15 minutes, I was not in that room anymore. I was somewhere else entirely, somewhere more real than anything I have touched in 89 years of living on this earth. And I came back carrying something burning inside me that I could not set down. Something that belongs to you as much as it belongs to me. Something I believe with every breath left in this old body was meant to reach you today, wherever you are and whatever weight you are hauling through this life. I know the fears people carry about dying. I had every one of them. But hear me when I say this plainly. What I found on the other side of that veil is not what you have been afraid of, not even close. What I found was more beautiful and more personal and more overflowing with grace than anything I had dared to hope for in 89 years of hoping. If you are a believer who has grown bone-tired, or someone who once had faith and watched it slip away somewhere on the hard road of this life, then stay with me a while. Sit here with me. What I am about to tell you was carried back across the threshold for people exactly like you. I was born in 1936 on a farm outside Maryville, Tennessee, where the Appalachian foothills press up against the sky, and winters arrive quietly with ice on the window glass before you have said goodbye to autumn. My grandfather worked that land. My father worked it after him. From the time I was old enough to follow a plow, I understood that life was made of soil and sweat and the mercy of rain, and that a man earned what he had with his back and did not complain about the earning. We were not wealthy. We attended First Baptist Church in the Valley every Sunday without fail, not because we were virtuous. Lord knows we were not always virtuous, but because we knew, the way people who live close to the earth always know, that we were not the ones keeping the world turning. My father prayed before every meal, before every planting, after every harvest, and his faith was not loud or demonstrative. It was steady, the way old fence posts are steady, worn smooth by seasons, never moved by weather. I grew up inside that faith. It was the structure of everything I knew. I served in Korea at 19. I will not linger there. I came home in 1955, carrying things that young men should not carry, things I packed into a sealed room somewhere inside myself and kept locked for 40 years. I met Ruth Ella Harmon in the spring of 1956 at a church social in the valley below our farm. She had red hair and a laugh that started somewhere deep in her chest and rolled out of her like music. And she was the most alive person I had ever stood next to in my life. We married in June of that year in the same little church where my father had prayed all his life. And we built our life together in the foothills outside Knoxville, a house with a screened-in porch where we would sit in the evenings listening to the tree frogs come alive after dark, A garden she tended with devotion she gave to few other things. 3 children who grew up and gave us 7 grandchildren, and then 4 great-grandchildren. I was stubborn and sometimes unkind in the small, quiet ways that leave marks no one ever sees. There were years I drank more than I should have. There were long silences between Ruth and me that could have swallowed a lesser marriage whole. But we endured, the way old things endure, not by being unbreakable, but by bending again and again and still remembering the shape of themselves. Ruth died in April of 2020 on a Tuesday morning when the dogwood trees in the front yard were in full bloom. She went in her sleep quietly, as she had done most things in her life, with grace and without making a fuss. I sat beside her for 2 hours after she was gone, because my hands did not know where else to go. Something in me went silent after that. Not broken exactly, but silenced in a way I could not describe, even to my own children. The house was the same house. The mountains were the same mountains. The garden came back that spring without her, the way it always had. But the color had gone out of things, the way a photograph fades when you leave it in the sun too long. I missed her in every room, in every season, in every early morning. And I prayed every day. And some mornings, the prayers felt like talking into a room where no one was home. And I kept on praying anyway, because I did not know what else to do with that much longing. By fall of 2023, my heart was failing, and my lungs were filling with fluid, and my doctor was using the careful, kind language doctors use when they are preparing you for an ending. I was not afraid of dying. I want to say that plainly. I was tired in my bones, tired in a way that went deeper than ordinary fatigue, down into some part of me that had been holding on by habit alone. And I was ready, not resigned, ready. The way a man is ready to set down a load he has carried faithfully all the way to the end of the road. November the 14th, a Tuesday again. God has a quiet sense of humor I have come to appreciate. The hospital room had that institutional temperature. Never quite warm enough and never quite cold enough to complain about. My son David had been there the evening before and left his brown canvas jacket hanging over the back of the chair. I kept looking at that jacket in the early morning hours, the way you look at ordinary things when you suspect you are seeing them for the last time, with a kind of helpless, total attention you could not explain if someone asked. Ruth's photograph sat on the nightstand, the one from our 40th anniversary, where she is laughing at something outside the frame. My Bible lay beside it, spine nearly worn through, pages soft as cloth from decades of daily handling. I could hear the rain against the glass. I could feel the IV line in my arm and the rough cotton of the hospital gown against my collarbone. I was so tired. I closed my eyes. And then the monitor changed its rhythm. And then, as naturally as a man stepping through a doorway into open air, I left. The first thing I knew, not saw, not heard, but understood, the way you understand warmth the moment cold lifts, was the complete and total absence of pain. not diminished, gone. Not gradually, simply not present, as though pain had been a garment I had worn so long I had forgotten what my own skin felt like underneath, and now it was off. In its place was a lightness I have no word for in any language I know. Not the lightness of happiness, which still lives inside a body. This was the lightness of being without resistance, without the low, constant labor of a frame that has been working for 8 decades. I was still myself, more myself than I had ever been. The self beneath the name and the history, clear and complete as spring water. I was aware of the room below me entirely, all at once, without the narrow tunnel that eyes create. I knew the positions of the nurses and the doctor with their urgent, devoted hands. I knew David's jacket on the chair, and Ruth's photograph, and the worn Bible. I felt for all of it something I can only call tenderness. A vast, unhurried, unshakable tenderness for those human beings doing their human work. And then came a drawing from within me, like a sound I had been hearing all my life through the noise of living, and could now, in the silence, hear clearly. I moved toward it, toward warmth, toward light, through a quiet darkness that held no dread and no loneliness, only direction, only the absolute settled knowledge that I was not traveling alone. And then I was there. 4 words I have turned over in my mind for 3 years and cannot improve on. I was there. Somewhere with no address and no comparison in anything I had ever seen or read or dreamed in 89 years of living. The light was alive. I do not say that loosely. It breathed. It was aware. Not the light of the sun or of anything created. The light of a presence. Something so vast and so intimate at once that both things belong together without contradiction. This light knew me, not knew of me, knew me completely. Every sealed room inside me, every year in Korea, every long silent morning after Ruth died, every small cruelty and every small forgotten kindness. And it did not flinch. It held me in all of it without the slightest withdrawal. The relief of being entirely known and entirely held at the same moment was greater than any happiness I had experienced in the body. An angel was with me. I will say that plainly and let you receive it as you will. A being of such presence and calm dignity that every honor I had ever witnessed bestowed on a human being seemed like a faint rehearsal for the real thing. It did not speak with sound. In that place, understanding arrives complete, the way warmth arrives, without mechanism, simply present. What arrived was my life, not a summary of it, the life itself, not in sequence, but all at once, the way you see a full valley spread below you from a ridge. I saw the boy running barefoot in the Maryville fields with his brother. I saw the young man on a frozen hillside in Korea making choices under pressure that I had spent 50 years trying not to look at directly. I saw Ruth's face in the church light on our wedding day, and every argument afterward, and every quiet evening on the porch, and every moment I had held my children, and every moment I had failed them. All of it simultaneously, all of it present. And what I experienced, the truth that undid me completely, was not condemnation. It was understanding. Pure, total, devastating understanding. Every wound I had inflicted was understood in its full context. The fear beneath it, the damage it had come from, the way it had traveled outward. And every act of love, no matter how small or forgotten, a cup of coffee brought without asking, a neighbor's broken fence mended on a cold morning, was equally present, equally real, equally permanent. Nothing had been lost, not one ordinary Tuesday. And then something beyond the angel, something so wholly good and so personally intimate that whatever I was in that place went to its knees in recognition. Not in terror, in the ending of terror, in the relief of a man who has walked lost for a long time and finally turns to see the lights of home burning in the dark. I will not say I saw a face as you see a face here. What I experienced was a love that had known my name before I was born and had been present in every year and every failure and every silent prayer of my life, and had not for one single moment stopped holding me. One truth arrived, not as words, but as absolute certainty, down to the foundation of what I was. Nothing has been wasted. Not the suffering, not the grief after Ruth, not one dry year of prayer that felt like empty air. Every bit had been held and had meaning and was part of something so much larger and more gracious than I had been brave enough to hope for. I was loved inside all of it, not despite it, inside every last piece of it. I saw Ruth. I will carry that knowledge into whatever comes next. She stood in what I can only describe as a field of living light, more fully herself than I had ever seen her in 60 years of marriage. Ruth at the deepest layer of herself, fully expressed, uncontained by age or limitation. She was whole, joyful in a way that went past happiness into something built into the very fabric of that place. She did not speak. She did not need to. Her presence communicated everything. She was held. She was full. The grief was not necessary anymore. And what we had built together had not ended, but had been received into something permanent that neither death nor time had any authority over. Then I was told to return, not harshly, not as punishment, with the same patient love that had held me through everything. A love that made clear without words. There were people who needed to hear what I had seen. There was still work. The reason to go back was not for my sake. It was for the ones still here, still carrying the weight of uncertainty about what waits on the other side. The return was not gentle. If leaving the body had been like removing a coat, returning was like being forced back into one that was cold and soaked and too small. Pain arrived all at once, the lungs, the heart, the exhausted machinery of 89 years, reconstituting itself around me like a storm. I heard the monitors. I heard voices. Someone said, "We're getting him back." Then there was the water-stained ceiling and the November light and David's jacket and Ruth's photograph on the nightstand. I wept, not from pain. I wept because I had been somewhere of absolute beauty and love, and was now on this side of the veil again, separated from it by this thin layer of flesh and years. But burning steady and clear beneath the grief of returning was the certainty of why I had come back. And that certainty has not dimmed in the 3 years since. I want to speak to you directly, you who are listening today, wherever you are, whatever you are carrying. You are not forgotten, not by any measure, not for a single day. Whatever you have done that you believe separates you from grace, it does not. Whatever doubt you carry, whatever years of dryness or grief or quiet spiritual exhaustion have built up inside you, none of it places you outside what I encountered. The love on the other side of that veil is not conditional. It is not earned by trying harder or suffering more quietly. It is waiting for you as you are, exactly as it waited for me. An imperfect, stubborn, broken old man from the Tennessee hills who had done more wrong than he liked to admit and doubted more than he cared to confess. It received me as though I were the whole point of everything, as though I had always been expected, as though every road I had walked, the broken ones as much as the good ones, had been leading exactly there. I am 89 years old. I have been given more time than I earned, and I intend to spend every remaining day of it saying this to anyone who will listen. Do not be afraid of what is coming for all of us. What is coming is not an ending. What is coming is light and love and the profound grace of being completely known and completely held. I have been there. I have been held inside it, and it is and always will be more than enough.